I had a purpose before everybody had an opinion.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out.
You want Philly Philly?
Chase Utley, you are the man.
You come out backyard and you try to start something, you always get your butt kicked.
The prayers have been answered.
How about those Eagles, baby?
And Rio Muto can run for days.
Can you feel what's about to happen on this field, man?
A perfect game. Roy Halladay has thrown the second perfect game in Philadelphia Phillies history.
All right, we are back for the first Philly talk of the baseball season. Obviously, we went over, sort of expectations, predictions during opening day. But now, baseball has begun. We're about a week in at this point. And before we get into things, just want to quickly get two things out the way. First of all, I don't know if you could hear it in my voice, but I am a bit sick. So that has... that might affect this video. Hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully my voice doesn't sound too different. Hopefully it doesn't affect this too much, but that may also lead to this video being a bit shorter than I would want it to be. And then the second thing, I did have a lot of different videos planned out for this week. Like I wanted to get the next discography review out the way. I wanted to get a wrestling video out the way, but life hasn't lined up that way. Now we'll see for Thursday and Friday if things open themselves up for me to do something like that, but if not, then we'll just have to wait and see. Once those come out, I have a lot of video ideas that I want to get out, a lot of videos that need to come out pretty soon, but obviously life is a bit unpredictable. But getting into it, the Phillies have not had that great of a start for opening day, and it's funny because that's all anyone could talk about when it came to heading towards opening day was, hey, we want the Phillies to have a much better start to the season than before that, especially these past 2 years where we had such slow starts. We just wanted a much better start, and it hasn't been looking that way. But there's a lot of ways to break down what has happened in this past week, especially at this point. I believe we've witnessed 5 games for the Phillies now. And one thing I want to commit to, hopefully for this season, is something that I started doing when I started Philly Talk, but kind of moved away from it when it just started becoming more and more discussion based. But so want to get back to that format of what was the good from this week, what was the bad, and what do we want to look for going forward. And with that out the way, let's look at what was the good that happened during this week with the Phillies. So, starting off, we look at the opening day. First off, our opening day got delayed because of weather, but when we finally were able to play the game, started off again because that delay, what was supposed to be a 4-game series turns into a 3-game series against Atlanta, and we'll get into more details about what happened throughout the series with Atlanta, but just focusing on some of the good when it came to this Atlanta series and this opening game. The two positives mainly to talk about from the first game was obviously Brandon Marsh having that huge 2-run home run. That was real nice to see. Hoping for a big season from Marsh. And then the other positive was, of course, Wheeler going 6 innings with 0 earned runs was absolutely good. A good that's more so from throughout the games is that, once again, the daycare is really the only life on this team at this current point. Like, Marsh is doing pretty well. Stotts kind of struggled in this Cincinnati series, but he's been holding things down. Alec Boehm has been really good in some points. What we saw from this Atlanta series mainly, that I see it as a good thing right now, is that they're being flexible with the lineup when it comes to Pache, Rojas, Merrifield, and Marsh. We'll get into it later, about Marsh and will he be an everyday player going forward, but I at least like that Rob Thompson is being a bit more flexible right now with his lineup, and being willing to being willing to move guys around and test things out in these early days. I believe it was in the first or second Atlanta game. I just wrote it down like some notes. The double steal was really clean from Schwarber and Turner. It brings the question. I've seen a couple people mention it too, but like I wanna look into it more. I think a couple Philly fans have had the sort of same thoughts, and it's the fact that as Kyle Schwarber slimmed down, he looks a bit slimmer. You know, like it's something I noticed. The third Atlanta game, we get a good outing from Ranger, and we get the comeback against the Braves thanks to Rojas beating out that play at first, which opened the window for Alec Boehm to drive in those 2 runs later on. That was pretty good. So we get that comeback going, and then Alvarado redeems himself from the first game. He gets his first save on the season. He looked real good in that inning. The Cincinnati series, I believe that's where Trey got that steal. Trey is still him on the base paths. He has 37 in a row, I believe. Has yet to be caught stealing. Real good stuff there. Alec Boehm is still one of our best hitters with runners in scoring position. The guy's just an absolute monster when it comes to that stuff. The fourth game, Sanchez was looking elite in his outing out there. He was looking real good. He was doing really well. And then in yesterday's game, Turnbull looked pretty good. Some people are thinking it's because of the weather conditions, so I can somewhat agree. Definitely want to look towards his next outing to see how he does with, better conditions. Now, it's not to fault him, and it's not to say that it was a bad game. He actually looked really good out there for us. He did exactly what Sanchez did and what you wanted out of a later rotation guy, to give you a decent amount of innings with a decent pitch count to then turn things over to the bullpen to do well for us. He looked pretty good. We saw Alec Boehm making quite a few defensive plays in this game as well, and I was just like, man, really impressed. It's, some people might look at it as the bare minimum, but it's like, compared to the past with what we've gotten, I'm glad to see that improvement. And then funny enough, I had forgotten to update my notes. I had it here that Harper had 2 home runs in this game. Nope. Harper had 3 home runs, with one of them being a grand slam. Absolutely great stuff from Harper. Glad to see him getting back on track, hopefully. But that's sort of all the good. There might be more, but that's just sort of the notes I took down with these games. Overall, these were things I really enjoyed seeing from the team. But of course, with the way our record looks right now and with the way a lot of these games played out, there's a lot more to talk about on the side of the bad. So, obviously, like I said, with the record and the way things have played out in a lot of these games, there's a lot more to talk about with the bad. First off, looking back to that first game, you have Wheeler on the mound. Like I said, he gives you 6 innings, 0 earned runs. He does really well. What the heck was the bullpen on in that game after Wheeler was taken out? Alvarado did not look like himself. He couldn't locate stuff. He was throwing like 100 at times, but he was not getting it in the positions he needed it, and was struggling and walking a lot of guys. Connor Brogdon looked terrible in that game. Everyone looked off. I don't think a single person in that game looked like themselves. Then you move on to the second game. Nola, okay, our second ace is going to be on here. He'll hopefully, lock things down. No, he starts struggling from the get-go, and they just never stopped the bleeding because they just wanted him to get, they wanted to get innings out of him. They just wanted to keep him pitching, get him in a groove, hopefully. But no, he was just struggling. I think he had like 7 earned runs on the day. Now, one of them I don't think should count because one of the balls was on Alec Boehm. He tried to barehand it and it went through him. They didn't count that as an error, and that just kind of goes to show that argument that people have been having a lot, and the fact that it's man, they're really trying to get a lot of these stats up by counting things as base hits, because it was Alec Boehm literally touched the ball and it usually that counts as an error, but they called it a base hit, so it counted towards Nola as an earned run instead of just a run against him, but not an earned run. But oh well. But yeah, that doesn't help the fact that he still gave up 7 runs and was not looking that good. And then when it comes to Wheeler, Wheeler's start and later on with Sanchez's start, they gave you really good outings, and you're like, man, how did they lose those games? Well, the offense. Castellanos is still making similar mistakes to what we've seen in the past. He's still swinging at stuff that's nowhere close to the box. He's still really not getting good looks at some pitches, Man, it's just kind of frustrating to watch a lot of times. And I get it with the way these umps have been for all these teams across Major League. These hitters just... they're trying to swing at anything because they don't know what's going to be called a ball or strike at this point. Johan Rojas has really been struggling to put things together offensively. Really struggling. He can't even help in certain situations by bunting, I have a lot of thoughts on the Rojas thing where it's like he's very valuable to us on defense, but to me at least, I was talking to my dad about, to me at least, that playoff experience really has him shook right now, at least from what I think, that I really think they should have started him off in AAA because he still seems pretty shaken up from the playoffs, because he doesn't look like the 302 hitter that we had in his 50 something games in the regular season from before that. This seems like a guy that is really struggling with confidence issues after that playoff series, and you just can't work through those things on a major league team that has the expectations and aspirations that they have, so I really think they should have started him out in AAA, especially because with the addition of Merrifield, you have a pretty good platoon there of Merrifield, Pache, and Marsh to hold things down enough while he figures things out, Another one who's been struggling, we talked about Turner in the good, but Trey Turner has kind of been struggling defensively a lot, and that's not something you want to see a lot, but he's been really struggling, making a couple errors, really kind of struggling in situations that he usually excels in, with his speed, he's not getting to the ball in certain situations. He's getting a bad jump on the ball at times, so hope to see some improvements there. The top of the lineup has really been off to a slow start. Now, Schwarber did get a home run in that one Braves game that we won with Ranger on the mound. But the top of the lineup has kind of been struggling a bit until recently, Harper was struggling to get his first hit for these past couple games. JT has kind of struggled a bit backing up Harper. Turner's been doing a lot better recently than previous games. Schwarber's just in the leadoff spot. We know what to expect from Schwarber in that leadoff spot. But yeah, it's not what we need right now and expected. We've also not been capitalizing on a lot of prime positions so far. We've had a lot of opportunities where bases are loaded. There's, a bunch of guys on base or just runners in scoring position. We just have struggled to drive them in. Let's not forget Rojas getting caught stealing in a prime position as well. That was real tough to see, and it really screwed things up in that inning. But also it's a lot of our guys weren't hitting to drive them in anyways, and then in the Cincinnati game, I talked about Rojas not having confidence. We saw that exact same thing with Connor Brogdon in the games he's played with us so far, where I don't know, man. I saw someone say it on Twitter, and I agree. I'm sure Connor Brogdon is a nice guy, but this guy clearly is not ready. Is really struggling at this point, especially with confidence issues. He even opened up about it after that Cincinnati game. This is a guy that we saw in previous years with the Phillies do pretty well. Did pretty well for us, especially in the postseason. I think it was 2022 that he did really well for us. Just doesn't have it, man. He just doesn't have it right now. This brother cannot throw a strike to save his life, and with the moment he finally does, he throws that fastball, boom, grand slam that loses us the game pretty much. And it's just like, this is not what that bullpen needs. And we talked about it all offseason about that the bullpen needed improvements, and they didn't make certain improvements, so that's what this team gets for not making those improvements. That's why I said in the prediction video, I expect some type of trades come like All-Star break or trade deadline where they try and ramp up things there. But yeah, and as we saw the news the day after, can't have games like that and expect to still stay there. They DFA'd Connor Brogdon. As many people said, the only reason he was on this roster was not only the injuries to Taijuan Walker and Ryan Kirkring, but the fact that he was out of options. And they wanted to give him like one last shot. They DFA'd him now after those performances. If he gets picked up, hope for the best. But just back to the minors to try and figure things out, But yeah, that was a lot of what the bad was happening. Was just a lot of struggles with the bullpen. Nola didn't look great. Our offense wasn't there to back up our guys when they gave you good enough innings. Just a lot of frustrating things to watch from this team. But let's talk about moving forward so that we can, kind of reason with a lot of the stuff that has happened. So I think the simplest thing to say about going forward is to just get a groove going. It's only the beginning of the season. We can't fully overreact just yet, as much as we would all love to. So I just say, let's see them get into a groove and get a bigger sample size before we make more judgments, about what this team is struggling with. Obviously they have their struggles, but how much of it can be just said to just, it's the start of the season, it's just 5 games, it's just 6 games, this and that, I will say going forward, as you heard me talking about in the bad, I'm very worried about the bullpen the most. And I'm a bit worried about the outfield, mainly because Castellanos is struggling. Rojas is like really struggling. This guy, he just can't draw a walk. He can't lay down a bunt. He's not getting hits for us, The defense is really the only thing that's keeping him there. But with an offense that's already struggling with certain guys like Castellanos, it's like you can't afford to have a lot of dead spots in that lineup. I'm hoping for a bit more change, and like I said, I think Brandon Marsh should be an everyday player, but I do applaud Rob Thompson for using these early days to get a look at what combinations work best offensively and defensively in the outfield, as well as seeing what's the best combination for both, like what's going to be the best combination that gives us both offense and defense rather than just one or the other. I definitely like the option of Merrifield and Marsh a bit better, but we'll just have to see what it's like in these coming days. Like I know it's a pretty short section and a pretty short end to this video, but that's really the only thing we can that's the only thing we can really say so far is just we gotta wait and see them get into a groove. We'll have a lot more games to look at the next episode we do this. And again, it's just the beginning of the season. We don't obviously want to see this start. We wanted a hotter start. We wanted them to see them get off to a better start. And hey, they might after getting into a groove. Who knows? That's just what we're gonna have to wait and see. We need more games to see, and we can't just judge things based off of the start of the season, even though we see a lot of teams having better starts to the season than us. So I'm just gonna look forward to just seeing them get into a groove and see where they can go from here. And I just want to see things get put together and be less stressful to watch.